I start bouncing up and down and getting up and down from my desk and going and chopping the carrots or soaking the lentils, I know something's not working. So then I might quit for the day because things aren't falling into place. I know when things are working well, and that's when the characters themselves start deciding what happens in the story, and I'm stepping away from it a little bit. When I'm so involved in the writing that I'm no longer a part of it as much as my characters are dictating what might happen next. And I know I'm succeeding when a character surprises me by doing something that I did not intend them to do. And then I sit back and go, whoa, oh, okay, that seems right. Yeah, so it's more about getting it right than I know when I'm getting it right. Getting it wrong is much harder to identify.
Just nothing feels as good to me as finishing a good book, like either reading one or writing one. So I'm just compelled to write. I love to do it. And I grew up in South Minneapolis, and my parents, back then, I'm 44 years old. So my parents, there weren't as many interracial couples in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, when I was a little kid. And so my parents were really intentional about the neighborhood we grew up in, Powderhorn area, our church, our schools. They picked places for us to live and socialize and everything else that had lots of different kinds of people from all kinds of backgrounds. And so I think that's what helped me to see that that was missing. And it helped me to understand how, I moved from South Minneapolis to River Falls, Wisconsin when I was going into the 8th grade. And it was one of the most terrifying things in my life. I went from this very diverse neighborhood to, I swear, not to besmirch River Falls, because I really loved, later when I found the theater people, I really loved living there and going to high school there. But I thought for my first week in school, everyone was blonde and named Aaron. I couldn't tell anyone apart. It was so weird. I felt, and my brother and I were really stuck out. And it's a strange thing when you don't see yourself, like when you become kind of invisible, and when you do see yourself, it's interpreted through other people's expectations and ideas about what you and your family might be like. So I think it's really important. I think it's really important that we have a lot of different voices in literature right now. And I want to try to add to that. I'm kind of more focused on talking about the mixed experience, which is my experience in this novel that's destroying my mind. So yeah. And the other part of it is, as an educator, I didn't think very hard. When I got a book in my classroom, I thought, oh, well, this is a perfect book. I mean, it's probably a perfect artifact. Like it's true. It's been vetted. It was made by the experts. And I didn't understand that books are flawed. Books, the representations can be misrepresentations, that even now, books that are coming out right now are telling really sometimes subtle, stereotypical stories about the people around us, even books that are supposed to be books about diversity and books that are inclusive. So I took it for granted that the books I was sharing weren't going to be damaging. So part of it is also taking that extra step of saying, well, if you want something done right, you need to try to figure out how to participate in doing it. And that doesn't mean I don't make mistakes all the time. But I'm trying really hard to make things a little more right.
Reading, yes, that's probably the main one. And reading lots of different types of books, like sci-fi and which I never used to touch, and or memoirs and prose and different authors and diverse authors. and jumping in and coming up. There'll be literally like a line in a book. Like I was reading a Mary Oliver book the other day, and there was a line in there about like, she thinks we have 3 different selves. Like there's 3 versions of each of us. And and she described it way more eloquently. But then I was like, why don't I write about, like, I want to know more about that. Or I want to know how that relates to me, or how I like kind of generate value out of that. So I think writing, obviously, the basis of a good story is finding the truth about something, or writing the truth. And I think that's different for a lot of us. So when I come up with an idea, it's just this little nugget that I have to know more about, or I want to, know how I like pull value from that.